All right, let's get comfortable because we're about to dive into one of the most interesting and maybe a little controversial ideas in philosophy called egoism. And don't worry, I'm not talking about the selfish person who cuts in line or takes more than their fair share of pizza. Though I admit margarita pizza is lit. We are going way deeper than that. Egoism is about the self, the individual, and what happens when we start to put self interest at the center of everything. How we think, act, and even understand the world. It's about asking big questions like what if everything I do is really about me? And what if that's okay? If you are still here, you're probably someone who wants to explore big ideas. So let's get into it. We'll talk about egoism's core ideas, bring in some psychology, and dive deep into the mind of Max Stirner, the philosopher who made egoism a bold challenge to society. Let's start with the very basics. Egoism. In simple terms, it's the idea that our actions, motivations, and even our moral choices are all about self interest. When you do something, egoism says you're doing it for yourself, even if you think you're doing it for someone else. Psychological egoism is the belief that every human action, even ones that look unselfish, is driven by self interest. For example, when you help someone, it could be because it makes you feel good or you want others to see you as generous. Then there's, of course, ethical egoism. This goes a step further. It says you ought to act in your own self interest. It's not just about describing human behavior, but also about telling how you should behave. This is where things get a little more intense. Ethical egoism challenges the idea that you should always care about others. It tells you that you should put yourself first. Now I know what you're probably thinking. Wait, doesn't that go against being a good person? And yeah, in a way, it does. This idea pushes back against the usual view that being good means helping others and acting selflessly. But egoism asks, what if being good to yourself could be the most important thing? Now, let's talk about Max Stirner. If you are into egoism, you need to know about this guy because he didn't just dip his toes into egoism, he dove in headfirst. Stirner is like the godfather of radical individualism. In his book, The Ego and Its Own, Stirner made a huge statement. He said, I am not a man, I am a unique one. He flipped the whole idea of society and morality on its head. For Stirner, the self is the highest. No one or nothing else comes above it. Everything else, society, religion, morality, is just a spook, a made up thing that controls you. He's basically saying, don't let anything else tell you who you are or what you should do. It's a huge challenge to everything we usually think about life. So, how much of your life is really shaped by what you want, and how much is shaped by what society or other people say you should want? Stirner is forcing us to think, what if we stopped living for others and just lived for ourselves? Stirner doesn't believe in sacrifice or duty to anyone. He believes the individual is the most important thing. That means rejecting any idea of duty to others, society, or anything else that tries to control us. Even the moral codes we follow, things we think are universal, are just tricks to control us. Stirner's goal is to free the individual from all that. But this freedom comes with a question. What happens when you stop following rules and start living for yourself? That's the scary part. You are left with nothing but you. And hey, that's a lot to handle, right? But let's not stop there. You probably know about Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who said God is dead and shook up the world of philosophy. Stirner and Nietzsche are a lot alike. They both reject traditional ideas of society and morality, and both focus on the individual. But they have different approaches. Now, here's where it gets interesting. While Stirner's philosophy is all about breaking free from external pressures, Nietzsche's is about becoming. Nietzsche talks about the Übermensch, which is translated as the overhuman or Superman. Someone who doesn't just reject society, but creates new values and goals for themselves. The Übermensch is someone who doesn't just break free, they build something new. Stirner's egoism is more about destruction, breaking down everything that holds you back. Nietzsche's focus is on creation, becoming a better, stronger version of yourself. Nietzsche wants you to rise above your limits and create your own meaning. Stirner, on the other hand, says, just break free and be who you really are, without all the external stuff trying to control you. While Nietzsche's will to power is about becoming your best self, Stirner's egoism is more about being your true self, without the limits society places on you. Both ideas are about the self, but they come at it from different angles. Now, let's mix in some psychology. The thing is, we already kind of live like egoists in many ways, even if we don't realize it. If you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's a good place to start. According to Maslow, once your basic needs are met, the next step is to become the best version of yourself, and that's self-actualization. Now, this idea connects to Stirner's egoism. Stirner says you should live according to your true nature without letting society tell you who you should be. Maslow's self-actualization idea is the same thing. When you stop worrying about fitting into society's box and start living the way that feels true to you, that's when you can reach your full potential. But it's not that easy, right? When you stop playing by society's rules, you have to ask yourself, who am I really? And Stirner's philosophy forces you to face that uncomfortable truth. When you get rid of all the roles and labels that others place on you, what's left? It's a tough question, but one that's really important to ask. Now, let's take some calculated risks. Let's consider the downside. If, let's say, everyone started living purely for themselves, what would happen? Could we still have relationships or be part of society? What happens when we all act out of self-interest? This could lead to isolation or even chaos. Stirner didn't see egoism would lead to a perfect world. His focus was on freedom. But that freedom doesn't come without consequences. It's messy, it's hard, but Stirner believed it's the only way to live genuinely. So, after all this mumbo jumbo and yapping, what is the takeaway here? Not doner kebab, definitely not doner kebab. But egoism forces us to put ourselves first, to stop living according to what others think we should do and start living for ourselves. Whether you agree more with Stirner's radical rejection of all limits or Nietzsche's call to create something greater, the message is very clear. You are the center of your own world. So, what are you going to do with that power? It's time to stop asking for permission, to stop apologizing for who you are, to live for yourself. Because when you get down to it, if you're not living for your own ego, then hey, are you really living